Reagan, Bernie Sanders wanting to jack up estate taxes to as high as 77%. And that's just sort of a primer on what a lot of other prominent Democratic candidates are looking at. Now, to be fair to Senator Sanders, he has been preaching this consistently throughout his very long career. But again, it's catching fire, and I'm wondering right now, Art Laffer, who joins me, if this is worrying you, or is this hurting the Democrats? Because to a man or woman, they are kind of reading from the same choir book.
Let me just say, I loved your last segment with Charlie Gasparino, Neil. It was great. And John Malone was a classmate of mine at Yale, and phenomenal guy.
Is that right? Wow. All right.
Yeah. By the way, what Bernie Sanders has been espousing for years and consistently is wrong consistently for a long period of time, there is no tax that is more vulgar in my mind than the death tax. You can earn your income. You can pay your taxes fair and square. You can take that after-tax income. You can go to Vegas. You can carouse. You can gamble. You can drink and you can smoke. And as far as my government's concerned, that's fine. It's your money. But you want to give it to your kids, you rat. They're going to tax you up to 77%. It's the most anti-family, anti-human tax I know of, and plus they won't get the money.
It depends if you like your kids, Art. But
I've got 6. I like a couple of them. I like a couple of them.
You know what's interesting about this, and I was actually getting into it with another guest last week, this idea that it's a wealth tax, really. Truth be told.
They try to make it that.
Right.
It's a lawyer pay. Right.
It's a
lawyer
subsidy. Most of the
subsidy.
monies have already been taxed, and then
yes,
some.
they have.
So they're taxed again. But I always figured that the rich will find ways around that sort of thing. And the same with the top rate when it was over 70, when it was over 90%.
Yes.
When John F. Kennedy proposed lowering taxes, and sadly it wasn't put into effect until after his assassination, we brought it down to around the 70s, right? So
yes.
I'm wondering if the realization is it won't affect that many people, but that's where they're trying to get the money.
Well, 2 things that will affect a lot of people. Number one, when Kennedy lowered the tax rates, the top 1% of income earners paid more in taxes after the tax rates were cut. That's the same thing that was true with Harding and Coolidge. When they cut the tax rates from 77% to 25%, tax revenues on the top 1% went way up, not down. And with Reagan, when we dropped the rate to 28%, the top 1% paid more in taxes on just themselves. So that, and in addition to that, Neil, they caused booms in the economy. This higher rate would cause a contraction. All the other people would pay less in taxes with the higher thing and the downturn that it would cause. It's just ridiculous what Bernie Sanders is talking about on the death tax.
Well, you could tax the wealthy at 100%. It just, I think, so that's part of the strategy. That's fine. I don't mean fine, but we've got to find a way to widen the tax revenue pie here, and we're not doing that. But
what should be low rate, broad base? Jerry Brown's flat tax.
Right. You know, last night I'm watching the Super Bowl, and
I loved it, didn't you?
No, I didn't. It was very dull.
Oh, sorry.
But
I'm very sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I was trying to get into it, understand what was going on, but I did catch
the Reagan play.
Yes. Let's. I think we have this from last night.
I loved it, by the way.
Reagan.
Is that Ronald Reagan? I feel like he called it Reagan.
Even I could figure out they're going to run to the right.
Yes.
No, I didn't figure. I seriously had no idea what that meant. But what did you make of that?
I thought that was great. I enjoyed that. I jumped up. I'm not a football fan at all, to be honest with you. And when I heard the Reagan play, I jumped up and got really excited. And I expected them to go to the right or go to the good, but there was no good side of the field, so I figured it had to be the right. But it's great, and Bernie Sanders needs to get some lessons from Reagan, and so do all the others. It's just silly what they're saying. You can't love jobs and hate job creators. It's just silly.
Well, you know, it is interesting, too. I mean, obviously this is something that you know, the base of the Democratic Party feels very passionate about, to even things up. And some of them even propose that this is a way of forcibly narrowing the gap between the very rich and average folks. And yeah, you could argue that if you tax someone to hell, you'll forcibly bring their net, you know, income down. But there's got to be a better way of doing that.
There's got to be a better way of doing it. A low-rate, broad-based, flat tax, Neil, and the rich will pay their taxes fair and square. As it is right now, Warren Buffett has all the legal deductions you can imagine. In 2010, I think it was, he paid something like $9 million in taxes, and his income, in my calculation, the Simon definition, it was $12.5 billion. And the reason he did was he's got every deduction, every exclusion, every loophole there ever was. And what we need to do is lower rates, broaden the base, and get rid of those loopholes. Do exactly what Jerry Brown did when he ran for president in 1992. A low-rate, broad-based, flat tax, 13% across the board on both income and net sales, and no other federal taxes at all. It's static revenue plus, and we would have the biggest boom you can imagine, and the poor would get jobs, and we'd do just what Kennedy dreamt of. The best form of welfare is a good, high-paying job, and that's what we need. And I wish liberals would see it because, frankly, it's right down their alley.
No, you're right about that. I'd be remiss. I know my producers will kill me. I did want to get your thoughts on this study, I think it was Axios, that shows the president has a lot of executive time. In other words, a disproportionate amount of time that he's either by himself or he's not going to any meetings or whatever, with the inference being that he's mailing it in, he's lazy. Now, I remember Ronald Reagan was criticized for this sort of leadership style, but we don't know what they're doing, or either Ronald Reagan did or in this case Donald Trump is doing with that executive time or whatever they're calling it. What did you make of it?
Well, I don't know, but every time I'm with the president, he's alert, and he covers lots of topics. He's quite intellectual, he's quite involved in the topics, and he really knows what he's doing. And what people don't realize, Neil, is he's the president. His advisors are not the president. You know, his advisors are there to advise him, but he is the decision maker. And so when he goes against his advisors, it's not because he's stupid or anything. That's exactly what he's supposed to do. He is the decision maker, and they serve him, not the reverse.
And it's 24/7. You're president 24/7. So how you're breaking that, that's your business, I guess.
And Reagan was great at that, too. Reagan understood that he needed a lot of sleep to make good decisions. And he was right. I need a lot of sleep, too. And I'm 78, but I make great decisions, Neil.
I think 20 hours is a good sum.
22. I'm up to 22. Yeah, that's my dream.
All right, Art. Well, whatever you're doing is working, young man. Keep at it. Art Laffer, a former Reagan economist, supply cider. It was cool when he made it cool. All right, now.